Namaskar. I'm Holly Castora, certified Iyengar yoga teacher, and today we're learning and loving Inversions, part 1, which is devoted to Salamba, Sarvangasana, and Halasana, and some variations. So there was a warm-up to this active part of the practice, and now we're going to start the active portion of the sequence. So we're going to start by coming almost into Supta Tadasana, so you can see that my knees are bent, and in the preparation we worked on learning how to take the inner upper arm, that aspect of the top of the humerus, away from the outer corners of the chest so that the chest could open from the inner to the outer. And then from here, see how I'm turning my triceps down towards the floor and then in towards the back sides of my trunk. And then I'm keeping the point of my elbows, the back of the elbows facing the floor, and turning the hands to hold the sides of the mat. Okay, now from here, I'm not going to press my feet into the wall to straighten my legs. I'm going to bring my hands a little closer to my armpits, and then without tilting the pelvis backward or forward, keep the pelvis in a neutral position and press the hands towards the feet so that the sides of the trunk pull up in the direction of the head, and then the backs of the legs go down into the space that was just created between the feet and the bottom of the buttocks. Okay, so I'll do that again, bringing my buttocks a little closer to the wall, adjusting the top of the upper arms so that they're moving away from the outer sides of the chest, and then the chest can open from the inside out. So from the shoulders to the elbows, the back of my upper arms are down on the floor, and then I'm stretching my biceps by extending the elbows and turning the palms then to hold the sides of the mat without letting the backs of the upper arms spin out. Okay, now keeping the chest open, I'm going to lift it so it's open horizontally, and now I'm going to lift it up in the direction of my head by pressing my hands forward towards the feet side so that my knees end up stretching, they extend, but because my trunk lifts up in the direction of the head. Okay, and see how I'm looking up at the ceiling, not towards my chest or towards the feet side. Okay, now from here, we're going to practice Supta Padangusthasana, leg up and out to the side as a warm-up. So for the standing poses to prepare the legs. So from here, I'm going to keep the elbows bent, triceps turned in, biceps turned out, and take the belt onto the center of the arch of the foot. Now, the way that you're using the belt matters. So again, the hands have turned in, but the upper arms are turned out, and let me just move this belt, and they're pressing not just the whole back of the upper arm down into the floor, but forward towards the elbow side. As I press the foot up, the arch of the foot up into the belt, the backs of the upper arms are pressing down and towards the wall. And that's actually going to help my foot press into the wall, the left foot press into the wall, and keep both sides of the trunk lifting up into, from the outer hips all the way up into the top of the armpit chest. Okay, now without letting the sides of my trunk drop down towards the floor, I'm going to take the belt in the right hand and extend the left arm out towards the wall on the left side of me. Okay, now the trunk stretches up in the direction of my head, even as this right leg goes out to the right. At no point should my armpits move towards my waist. and the waist move towards the pelvis. So I'm lifting the pelvis up away from the legs, lifting the waist up away from the pelvis, lifting each and every one of the ribs all the way up into the top of the armpit chest. And then the right leg comes back up, keeping the chest, the sides of the trunk lifted the entire time. And then bring the right leg back down and change sides. So the bent elbow stage is a preparation for the straight arm stage, and eventually, you know, with your elbows bent and your hands will be on your back in Halasana. So from here, seeing that the backs of the upper arms at the shoulders are pressed down towards the floor and moving all the way towards the elbows, elbows turning from the outside in. As I straighten the left leg from the outer hips, I have to contract the outer hips and lift up towards the into the top of the armpit chest. Okay, and then I keep the sides of the trunk lifting up in the direction of my head, even as the leg goes out to the left, out to the left, out to the left. And from the, so the pelvis is lifting up off of the legs, sides of the waist lifting up off of the pelvis, and the ribs lifting one by one by one by one by one up and away from each other, all the way into the top of the armpit chest. Don't let the armpits drop down, keep them tall and immovable, okay? And then from here, the leg comes back up. So now, even though that was a warm-up for the hamstrings and the inner thigh muscles for the groins and for the hamstrings and the inner thighs, as well as for the outer hips, I feel like the sides of my trunk have been intelligized, okay? Okay, now I have a long belt to show you how a way to practice Tadasana. Using the belt, just like the Supta Tadasana, but if you don't have a long belt, you could use two short belts looped together. So I want you to see how I'm taking the belt onto the area where the ankle and the foot meets, and then placing it around the outer edge of the foot, underneath the very back of the arch of the foot, which is right in front of the heel, right in front of the horizon of the heel, which is the part of the heel that's near the arch of the foot, near the arch of the foot. Okay, so I'm going to bend my knees and take my hands a little closer to my feet. Now again, I'm not letting the top of the upper arms move against the outer sides of the chest. I'm taking the top of the upper arm bones away from the outer sides of the chest, moving the outer sides of the chest away from the inner chest, so I feel the chest begin to spread out away from the sternum and towards the outer side body. Okay, then I roll the shoulders back, turn the upper arms from the inside out, and see that the points of the elbows are facing the wall behind me. Okay, now's the time when you can move the back of the elbow joint into the front of the elbow joint. See that the pelvis is not tilting forward or backward, but it's perpendicular to the floor. Okay, and then turn the back of the thighs out, front of the thighs in. Now you feel that space between the buttock bones and the heels. Okay, that's the space that you're going to fill in with the back of your legs, but not by just stretching your legs, by lifting your trunk up, lifting the trunk up so that the legs, the knees straighten, and then the back of the legs move into that space between the buttock bones and the heels, into that space. So you fill up the space between the buttock bones and the heels with the back of your legs, and at the same time, feel how the trapezius muscles are starting to get drugged down in the direction of the heels, okay? Now I'm going to show you from the side bonus, this lifts the arches of the feet. Okay, so here I go again. I want you to see how my arms are not against the sides of my trunk. They're from the shoulders to the palms of the hands behind. Okay, and you see how because I bent the knees are forward, and then there's that space that needs to be filled in. So I open the chest, then I roll the shoulders back, turn the upper arms from the inside out. Okay, now the hands aren't going to slide on the belt. What's going to happen is the trunk is going to lift up higher than the arms, higher than the arms, higher than the arms, and then that space gets filled in between the buttock bones and the heels, and all of the primary actions for Tadasana apply. Backs of the thighs turning out, front of the thighs turning in, inner thighs perpendicular to the floor and right on top of the shins. Okay. Now remember that for the standing poses that are to come. So the first standing pose is Tadasana, Uttita Trikonasana, and we're going to practice Uttita Trikonasana with the hand on the block and the outer edge of the foot against the floor. So I'm taking the outer edge of my foot to the wall and taking the leg out to the side. Now, the reason for using the wall is to keep the inner thigh lifting up, moving back, and then out to the side, okay? And then the hand is going on the block, this arm is going alongside the trunk, so that the, and you want to see that the arm is perpendicular to the floor, okay? And then from here, you're going to take the arm up, keeping the back leg, inner thigh lifting up, moving back so it's in line with the inner heel, and then out towards the wall on the same side as the outer edge of the foot, okay? And then from here, I'll come up. Okay, now, what was the purpose of using the block? So I hope you could see that my palm was completely open. And that arm, right, with the hand on the block, is the same arm as is taught when we place the hand on the wall for Parsva, Ardha, Hastasana, okay? So I want you to start with your torso facing the wall. And again, just as you placed the hand when we were practicing that prone Shavasana, you're going to place the outer edge of the hand down, lift the inner edge of the hand up, and then move the base of the thumb away from the middle of the wrist, okay? Now from here, turn the point of the elbow from the outside towards the inside, and then lift that point of the elbow up and away from the floor while keeping the shoulder down. Now the inner upper arm, the inner elbow, and the inner wrist are all in one line, and as I turn my trunk away from the wall, I'm going to maintain that alignment. So I'm not letting the top of my upper arm bone here come forward from my elbow or my wrist. I'm keeping the top of the upper arm bone back in line with the inner elbow and the inner wrist while turning the point of the elbow to face the floor. Feel what that does for the shoulder blade. Okay, now watch what happens to the thoracic spine when you lift the back of that elbow, the point of the elbow up, and move it away from the floor while keeping the top of the shoulder pressed down towards the floor and out, top of the shoulder out towards the hand, okay? Now, from the center of your chest, okay, so you opened the chest, move to the top of the upper arm bone away from the outer corner of the chest, outer corner of the chest away from the inner corner of the chest. Now, from the center inside the chest, reach out into the palm of the hand. Reach out into the palm of the hand, and then take your opposite arm out to the side, bend the elbow, and reach from the center of the chest out through that hand as well. And see if you can, even though you have the wall one hand on the wall and one hand not on the wall. Can you make the vibration in your arms coming from the chest out through the wrists symmetrical, balanced, equanimous? Okay, and then with an exhalation, release your arms. So you would practice that again on the other side, okay? And seeing that this back of the elbow is turning from the outside in, and that the point of the elbow, the back of the elbow is moving towards the front of the elbow or towards the crease. And then repeat Uddita Trikonasana with that knowledge, right? So you just would have intelligized the other arm, okay? So now when you come into Uddita Trikonasana, and the arm is perpendicular to the floor, it's as if the hand was on the wall. It's as if the hand was on the wall. Move the base of the thumb away from the center of the wrist and towards the tip of the thumb. Don't grab the block with your hand. Don't grab the block with your hand. Turn that back of the elbow from the outside in, and then move the back of the elbow, that pointy part of the elbow, from the back and towards the front. But don't let the shoulder blade go towards the center of the room. Top of the shoulder held backward towards the wall behind you. And then take the top arm up. And even though one palm, one wrist is bent and one wrist is straight, can you make the vibration in both arms symmetrical? Turn the back of the elbows from the outer to the inner. Move the back of the elbow to the front of the elbow, and from the center of the chest, reach all the way into the block and out through the fingertips. Okay, then keeping the inner upper thigh on the back leg, lifting up and moving out towards the wall on the back leg side. Inhale and come up. Okay, so that back leg work and that arm work from Trikonasana, Uddita Trikonasana, and Parsva Ardhastasana will inform Uddita Parsva Konasana. Now, in Uddita Parsva Konasana, we're going to practice so that the bottom hand is on the block, and the top, the finger tip of the middle finger is reaching for the wall. And you don't have to have the block on the high side this time. You can place it on the medium side or the flat side, okay? And then the outer hips are moving in, but the inner upper thighs are moving to the outer upper thighs, okay? And see that back leg, inner thigh is lifting up. It's moving back towards the wall behind you and laterally out to the side. Okay, so from here, bend the hip. The knee will bend as a result of the hip bending, and keep the pelvis, sides of the waist, and each and every one of the ribs lifting up. Turn the knees from the inside out. All the primary actions apply, and then from here you're going to, again, just as when you placed your hand on the wall, place the hand on the block in such a way that the inner upper arm, inner elbow, inner wrist are all perpendicular to the floor. They're in line with each other. Turn the back of the, just like you're turning the knees from the inside out, you have to turn the elbow from the outside to the inside. That's it. And then move the back of the elbow joint into the front of the elbow joint. But don't let the shoulder go towards the wall. Keep the shoulder blade moving back against the torso. Okay, then from here, as you reach, so the extension has to happen from the center of the chest first, then turn that elbow, the point of the elbow, from the outside in, and as you take the arm over the head, you're going to reach for the wall on the left side of you. Okay, but keep the pelvis, waist, and side ribs moving up in the direction of the head. Okay, now this outer left armpit, I'm going to move it towards the camera and then slide that armpit, not the shoulder, but lengthen the armpit by reaching up the wall, not down the wall, not into the wall, but up the wall with the fingertips. And then from here, come back to Virabhadrasana 2, and straighten the leg. Now come back to Tadasana and feel how the back of the armpit on the top leg, the back leg side of the asana has been touched. And then from here, practice Utthita Parsvakonasana the same way on the other side. Okay, now Parsvottanasana is in this sequence, and I'm placing the outer back heel against the wall and then taking the front leg forward, and I'm going to have some space between my, so my feet are hip distance apart for this one, okay? Now, as the back leg was in Utthita Parsvakonasana and Utthita Trikonasana, I'm lifting the inner back thigh up, moving it from the front to the back, and also holding it against the bones. And same thing on the front leg side. The outer hips move in, the inner upper thighs move out. Then I have space to lift the pelvis up, which moves the tailbone in. Okay, now from here, I'm going to take my arms back as if in a Shalavasana position, and then as if I was in that mini Dvipada over the bolster, I'm taking the neck and the head back behind the chest, and then maintaining that position. It's as if I'm doing Supta Tadasana with my hands on the mat or the hands on the belt, and so my hands are reaching back towards the wall behind me. I'm going to keep the trapezius muscles moving away from my neck. I have to turn the triceps in, biceps out, and move the forearms, the wrists, and the hands closer together. And I want you to see how my arms are perpendicular to the floor. I'm not letting my wrists go up higher than my shoulders, So this is a concave variation of the pose where the arms are in Shalavasana. And then reach back through the arms to come up. Okay, so we'll repeat that on the other side. And what I was saying was, and you could even do this with your belt, especially if you had a longer belt, is you could place the belt around the arch of the foot. You just have to see that you don't have your hands too close in. If your chest isn't wide enough, right? What happens when you bring the hands close in, if you don't have the flexibility, right, in these pectoral muscles so that they can spread out to the sides, what happens is the top of the shoulder rolls forward, the upper arms turn from the outside in. So keep your hands as wide apart as you need to, so that you can roll the shoulders back. So, and then, bonus, this placement of the way of using the belt helps at the same time to keep the arch of the back foot lifting up and away from the floor. So the top of the thighs going back, inner upper thighs to the outer upper thighs, outer hips in, and the sides of the trunk extending. And the arms are just parallel to the floor. Trapezius away from the neck, neck and head away from the upper back. Okay, and then Prasarita Padottanasana was practiced in this, sequence also, and this is, we're taking the head down as a preparation for Adho Mukha Svanasana. Okay? So, and you can also take your arms in Prasarita Padottanasana overhead as in Adho Mukha Svanasana, but what we're practicing in this sequence is that the hands are where the hands need to be so that the wrists are down on the floor. And again, moving the base of the thumbs away from the inner wrist, turning the points of the elbows from the outside in. See how the forehead is facing the floor? So it's not facing back towards the space between my legs, it's just facing the floor. And the reason for that is so that I can move the back of the elbow joints to the front of the elbow joints while keeping the wrist pressing down, because that's going to help move the back of the thoracic spine, the dorsal side, towards the anterior side, move the sternum down towards the floor, and then forward towards the front of the mat. And then from here, I'm going to bend the elbows back towards the space between my two legs and bring my head down towards the floor. And then from here, I'll take the hands back, keeping the elbows turning from the outside in, and the base of the thumbs moving away from the center of the wrists. The trapezius muscles at no point are becoming part of the neck. So I'm moving the neck and the head away from the upper back. Okay, now from here, I'm going to move the back of that elbow joint into the front of the elbow joint, keep the wrist pressing down, forehead facing the floor, and then take my hands off the floor and inhale and come up. Okay? So I'm going to show you that from the side view. So using the first stage to get some flexibility in the wrist, so I want to go to a place where I can press my wrists down, but that it's challenging to do so. So I'm pressing my wrist down, but it's challenging to do so. Okay, and then from here, and keeping the weight placed evenly between the front of the heels and the balls of the toes, backs of the heels are down, and I'm pressing out into the outer edges of the feet. From here, I'm turning the backs of the elbows from the outside in and then pressing them from the front to the back, while seeing that the shoulders stay away from the back of the neck. And then I'm not just pressing the hand down into the floor, I'm pressing it down and forward towards the wall in front of me to bring the back of my head to be, and the back of the ears to be perpendicular to the floor. And then I'll take my hands further back once I'm there. So the hands are pressing down and forward towards the fingers, and the heels are pressing down and forward towards the toes. Okay, and then to come up, keeping the wrist down till the last minute. So that throughout the entire asana, I feel the grip of the shoulder blades, not the grip at the top of the shoulders, but the firmness of the scapula being held against the back sides of the torso, the upper back. Okay? So now for Adho Mukha Svanasana. So that the focus can be on the arm actions, I'm going to take my hands, turn them out, and place them at the wall. And again, I want that same alignment, inner upper arm, inner elbow, inner wrist that I had in Parsva Ardha Hastasana. Now I'm turning the backs of the elbows from the outside in and moving, not the shoulders towards the wall, shoulders away from the wall, and the back of the elbows towards the wall. And earlier I said, I asked if you could have an even vibration through the extension of the arms in Udita Trikonasana and Parsva Ardha Hastasana. So can you find that now, that both of the palms are pressing down into the floor evenly and forward towards the wall in front of you. Now from here, I'm bringing the outer hips back towards the wall behind me, lifting the shins up and away from the floor, and keeping my thighs and my abdomen closer together for this first stage. Now I want to lift the back of my torso up towards the hips, and then from here, extend the knees. But I have to keep the trunk lifting up, not let it go down towards the floor. So I'm moving the back of the elbows from the, those points of the elbows from the back to the front, but also lifting the lower back, the outer hips, and the inner thighs, and the top of the thighs. Now to bring the heels down, I'm going to stretch back through the center of the arches and find the front of the heels and press the front of the heels firmly down into the floor. I spread them and press them down and towards the toes, and towards the toes. Okay, now the hands are pressing into the wall. The hands are pressing into the wall, and as you did in Uddita Parsva Konasana, those outer armpits have to move towards, the outer armpits have to move, the backs of the upper arms have to turn from the inside out. So the outer armpits are not just lengthening as they did in Uddita Parsva Konasana, but they're also turning that way as well. Okay, and then from here, sit back on the heels and watch me. So when you took your arm over your head in Uddita Parsva Konasana, you not only lengthened this area here, but I said move this outer armpit forward. I was moving the outer armpit forward in the direction of the camera. So now I'm in Adho Mukha Svanasana, and this outer armpit not just has to lengthen, it shouldn't move back this way. I have to hold it with the power of concentration, dharana, so that there's no slipping out from backward towards the, or up towards the ceiling. It's moving down towards the floor, and then sustained. At some point, that attention turns into awareness, where there's an unbroken flow of concentration. Then that's when meditation happens. So let's repeat again. So I've adjusted the arms, the elbows, the base of the thumbs, okay? And I'm bringing the buttocks back towards the heels, lifting the shins up, lifting the lower back up, inner thighs up, or the top of the thighs up, and the outer hips up and away from the floor, without letting the points of the elbows go down towards the floor. They're lifting up. And then to bring the heels down, I have to see that the outer armpits continue to elongate and move down towards the floor. And I can feel that my right hand wants to press the wall more than the left, but I'm going to depend on the left side to fulfill its dharma as much as the right side. And move the front of the neck away from the top of the chest. Okay, and then you can either walk back to Uttanasana or bend your knees and come down. Okay.